Well, it's great to be back on the sets here at Cricbuzz Live. Of course, the juggernaut continues with the World Cup, and it's a team who will be itching to get on the park more than anyone else. It's Afghanistan taking on Sri Lanka. A doubleheader, of course. We'll tell you more about the second game. For now, let's press on with game number one, coming from beautiful Queensland, a place they're known for a lot of rain, but I think a lot of the precipitation has been focusing on Melbourne. And Victoria have not exported any of that rain to the otherwise rainy east coast of Australia. I'm joined from different parts of the world, right here in the studio with me, Joy Bhattacharjya, and Michael Vaughan. Michael, good morning.
Morning. It's a bit earlier. It's about what have we got? 3:35 in the morning. So yeah, I'm up early. I'm up with the milkman, delivering the milk. So I'm entertaining them. It's great to be on the show. I'm looking forward to the first game, obviously, but here in the UK, we're all excited and hoping that England can produce a performance against New Zealand.
Joy, I was so hoping Michael would say he's not up with the milkman, but he's just come back from the pub.
It's that kind of age. He's had a couple of rough days. He's had his birthday on the 29th, and I'm sure he lived it up. So I think he needs at least one day for recovery in between a couple of days of recovery. But
I have to interrupt you, Joy. He's not the only one. I mean, we have two birthday boys here with us, almost jointly with us. So I think before we go any further, to both our heroes on Cricbuzz Live, to Joy and Michael, once again from all of us, happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One thing I want to say is I'm so glad to see you after so long wearing pants. Because I'm sure, because all the studio stuff that we've done in between, you've not been there. I mean, we've just got into the studio a few days back. You've not been there. I'm sure all those shows you were doing at home were in shorts. Tell us the truth.
I'm so glad you said wearing shorts. I thought for a moment you were going to say wearing absolutely nothing, just the top, because that's what was visible. But yeah, I had to find through the woodwork, through the cobwebs, pull out a few pairs of trousers and jeans, and now we're fully attired, shoes, socks, the works, it's all there. But I think the people who want to put their pants on today are Afghanistan, because they haven't had the amount of cricket they would have liked to have had.
I was saying that in a year in the Khyber Pass, it probably rains 3 times. And they've got 3 matches rained and 2 matches rained out already. And they must be wondering, where does all this rain come from? I mean, it is just such a good team on the cusp of what you call taking the next level. And, rain is just playing spoilsport for them all the time.
Well, we'll update you first and foremost the result of the spin of the coin. Afghanistan have won the toss and teams are realizing that runs on the board seems to be the way to go in this tournament. And they've decided to bat first and let Sri Lanka have the headache of trying to chase down whatever they put on. So I guess, Michael, for a team like Afghanistan, putting runs on the board and not giving themselves a headache of trying to figure out a run chase is always good.
Yeah, I guess so. It simplifies what they need to do. We're seeing it quite often in this tournament that the team batting first is doing well. We saw that yesterday, Australia against Ireland. I mean, two sides that Australia were clear favourites. But Ireland put up a fight, and that actually helped England in terms of the way that they played towards the back end. It looked like Ireland were going to get absolutely trounced, and the net run rate for Australia was going to be improved so much it was going to make it very difficult for England in terms of how they were going to have to win the last 2 games, but also in such an aggressive fashion. I've enjoyed this World Cup for that reason that, generally in T20 cricket, it's always been a bit of a laughing point at the toss where you just know the teams will always bowl first and try and chase. It was a common trend in last year's IPL where this year, batting first in the T20 World Cup has been a decent way to go. I'm just looking forward to that. I always enjoy when it gets down to the nitty-gritty end of a World Cup group stage where you just know that you have to perform. You have to produce the goods. There's no other option. And some teams obviously have to produce the goods with a little bit of a cherry on the top because they've got to win in such an aggressive way to get the net run rate improved that much better. So we're at the heart end of the group stage. It's always a real test for the players, which players can withstand that pressure, which players can really produce the magic when it's needed. And you start to find out about 1 or 2 individuals in your side, but more so a collective group of players.
Yeah, interesting one it was because it was a 75-run gap that Australia needed over Ireland to go over England. But you'd imagine in a key net run rate situation, you'd pretty much want to bowl first and then try and knock the runs off quickly.
No, absolutely. And they played it differently. They had a situation where they said that, we're going to try it. They had a chance. Remember, it was 66 for 6. I mean, they were 6 down. They had their foot in the throat and they couldn't close it. And I think, it was just one of those things where you say the Australian side of the late 90s, early 2000s would have finished it off for 90, 100, I think they let their foot off the pedal at that point in time for them to get to 100. And it got to about 45, 50 in the last 3 overs, which are very doable. I mean, the way they were batting at that point in time. So, yes, they couldn't close the door when they could have. And, just picking up on the point that Michael was making, sides which are inexperienced batting sides. And, I mean, Afghanistan, you'll have to say their bowling is their strong suit, their spinners is their strong suit. Fazal Haq Farooqi is coming on. Sides that are inexperienced always like to bat first also. Because the situation there is that you don't know what is a good target here. So you just go and set what you can out there. You go and see the conditions, get 160, 170, whatever you can on the board. Chasing is a difficult thing because you need to plan it better. You need more experienced batsmen. They've already lost Hazratullah Zazaiv to injury. So that's the point I think they made. An inexperienced batting side is always better. Your stronger suit bowling will come second.
Well, the strongest suit, whichever part it may be, I know we probably will focus a little bit on Fazal Haq Farooqi, but the spinners will have to be the guys who do the job for Afghanistan because they've always come to the party. And if there is a bit of turnaround, and in the last encounter at the Gabba, there seemed to be a bit around. So I guess that would have also influenced their decision. Let's put runs on the board and let our spinners do the job.
No, absolutely. Put runs on the board, get our spinners do the job. And remember, their spinners all play in Australia. All of them play Big Bash cricket. So they are experienced, they understand the conditions, they played at the Gabba enough times for their Big Bash League team. So they know what to do out there. Their batsmen are the people who are not experienced. And that's the thing, that get your inexperienced part out, tell them go, express yourself, do as much as you can, we'll handle the rest. I mean, that's how they'll have to look at it.
Well, let's quickly remind you of the teams. Joy has already alluded to the one change that Afghanistan have, a forced change. The aggressive Hazratullah Zazai has been ruled out. So they've got that one change. The very experienced Gulbadan Naib comes in. How much he's played for them in both 50 over and 20 over cricket. He's a little lieutenant down in the middle order there, but that explosiveness of Zazai will be missing. Spinners to come to the fore, Rashid Khan, Mujibur Rahman, look out for both of them. And of course, Fazal Haq Farooqi has made such an impression already in this tournament and for Afghanistan in general. For Sri Lanka, there's one change as well. And let's move on to the Sri Lanka team and have a look at that. Pramod Madhushan is the one who makes it in there. But again, we saw a vastly improved performance from Kasun Rajitha last time around. And again, if you're on the subject of spinners, you can't rule out Mahesh Theekshana and Wanindu Hasaranga.
Absolutely. I think they're fabulous. Also, all the teams, especially who are coming through the group stages, what's happened with Sri Lanka is it's also a bit of a plus because you're playing those extra games. And there's nothing better than game time to get you into a tournament. So playing qualifying may seem at one level seem to be not the kind of things you want to do. But at the same time, I mean, Wanindu Hasaranga already had 6-7 wickets. He'd already taken 6-7 wickets by the time the Super 12 starts. So you get bowlers who are already in a bit of form. And I think that's what's happened with the Sri Lankan bowlers. They're looking really good. The spinners are looking really good. Given the fact of the number of fast bowlers they've lost about 5 fast bowlers. I mean, I thought Kasun Rajitha in the last match did pretty well for them. They couldn't complete it. And they bowled brilliantly to their plans. If you see the way what they did with New Zealand, the way they bowled, Theekshana bowled up front, Hasaranga, they had New Zealand on the mat. It's Glenn Phillips who took them out. And, one dropped catch and that cost them a lot of things. But this is a very, very decent Sri Lankan bowling attack.
Michael, put your captain's hat on two different fronts. One, if you were captain of Sri Lanka and you lost half your bowling attack, how would you deal with it? But also, picking up from Joy's point, would you look at the fact that you're qualifying as a plus and say, listen, it's extra games for us? Or would you tell yourself, listen, we can't let that happen again. Let's push to be ranked in such a way that this doesn't happen again?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult when you're losing bowlers, but I think Sri Lanka. I mean, I go back to the last game against New Zealand. They got off to such a good start. They had New Zealand out 3 down quickly, and then it was an incredible innings by Glenn Phillips to get New Zealand to that score. And then obviously with the bat in hand, they just didn't fire at all. But Sri Lanka are the Asian Cup winners. They've got a group of players that there's a bit of experience there, but you just feel that Sri Lankan cricket at the minute is still going through that transitional stage of just trying to find out. I mean, Chris Silverwood, the ex-England coach, the last game against England will be interesting because obviously England may have to play a game against Sri Lanka in terms of the net run rate. They might have to play an aggressive game. Chris Silverwood, I'm sure, would love to, even though he's an ex-England player, he's an ex-England coach who was sacked. I think he'd be quite happy to see the back of England in that last game. So, they are going through a little bit of transition still. They do swap and change quite a bit. I don't quite know whether they know which is their best 11, but obviously they've lost a few bowlers. But they're always a team, Sri Lanka, that on their day they can really surprise and give anybody a game. And when they fire, they've got incredible talent. They always have them from right back in the 90s when they won that 50-over World Cup. They can always play a flamboyant game of cricket. I love watching them play. I always feel they play cricket the right way. I'm looking forward to seeing them play today. But, I think you're right. They've just got to start winning good games of cricket. They don't want to be coming through into the tournament through the back door anymore. They want to try and make sure that they're at the forefront of being in all these World Cups from the get-go. They don't want to be qualifying at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I know we keep harping on as the Asian champions are up, but to be fair, they really did punch above their weight in that tournament. I mean, you had India, Pakistan, and even Afghanistan, who pre-tournament were looked at as possible favourites to win that, and suddenly they come from nowhere and win the tournament.
Not only that, after getting smashed by Afghanistan in their first match, I mean, that result, the first match, that was the lowest point of Sri Lankan cricket. And I think they made a tremendous job to come back from there. The only problem was that the guys who were doing it for them there are not getting, their engine room, that is Shanaka and Bhanuka Rajapakse, they are not doing it for them. I think that would be a real worry because I think they're getting a few starts. Nisanka's got a few runs, Kushal Mendis has got runs for them. It's after that they're in real trouble. And I think that's what they could be looking at, saying that, this is the business end of the tournament. This match, it's a very winnable match for them. It's a very, very winnable match for them. They need one of the guys in the middle order to fire.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that since we talked about the backdoor entry, if they were to lose to Afghanistan today, they might once again be looking at those extra matches in 2024. Let's have a look at where the points table stands. I know they're right down at the bottom, but it's only going to be upwards from here. If they win, they get to 4 points, and suddenly they leapfrog above England for the moment, and then all to play for. It's a crazy old group, this one. Group 2 is just a little bit saner, only relatively speaking, but Afghanistan too will be looking at getting those points. But just to harp on Rajapaksa for a moment, Joy, even in the IPL we saw him as being such a potent force. Again, it was a bit of a surprise element when he started performing there. So you just think that, oh wow, if Rajapaksa can do this for Punjab, imagine what he can do for Sri Lanka. He briefly did it, seems to have gone off the boil.
Yeah, again, last match. Gets 34, 35 runs. He looked like the only person who smashed everybody. That 34 of 22 balls, he was looking fantastic. He was the one Sri Lankan who was timing the ball to perfection. He was finding gaps, he was timing the ball, he was hitting the ball really hard. He has that ability, that rare gift of power and timing together. And then he suddenly just goes off the boil. He gets out at the most crucial times. And I think that's what you have. You have a situation, you have a very talented batsman. And you know what he said before the tournament. He said that I want to be player of the tournament. So for player of the tournament, 85 runs is not going to cut it. You need to do a bit better than that.
The other number that struck me, Michael, was a strike rate of 123, which, I mean, there are times when you're not completely in form in terms of number of runs, but your strike rate is more up where you normally strike at around 150. So he'd want to look at that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 123 strike rate is... he's not going to win your team too many games. Look, he's a great player in terms of talent. He gives you so much. I mean, he gets those starts and you're just sitting there waiting and go and get the big scores. And from there, he gets out. That's frustrating, but there's no question that he's a player that we'll be seeing plenty of, and we'll see him in many more World Cups, I'm pretty sure. And sometimes it's just that one innings. It's that one innings that triggers you into getting that score of 70, 80, 100. And it just trains your brain to know how to get that bigger score. To get to 20, to get to 30 in T20 cricket. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think it's relatively easy to just go out there and hit a few, and then suddenly you're on 20, you're on 25. To get a 70 or 100 in T20 cricket, it requires more than just striking. It requires more than just whacking the ball over the stands into the hitting the boundaries. It requires a bit of smartness to get those bigger scores. You look at all the players over the years who have been consistent in T20 cricket. They generally don't just do it playing one way. You've got to just, as much as the gears start pretty much in gears, you'd say 3 in T20 cricket, going up to 6 with these nice fast cars that they can drive in T20 cricket. You've still got to know how to go up and down in the gears, and that's how these really good players get the consistent big scores. He's a really good player that I'm sure we're going to see lots of, but he just needs to work out how to get those bigger scores more consistently.
Interesting analogy. If you try and equate each of the 3 forms of the game to a particular type of car, I'm wondering if it's fair to say that just because it's the shortest and quickest format, you need to have a proper sports car in T20 cricket. Probably not. And the reason why I'm saying this is because trying to stoke the fire a little bit, not stokes it, I deliberately said that, and get Michael's opinion on whether or not, or which car, which type of vehicle Ben Stokes actually belongs in. Because Simon said in our preview that he felt, of course, in terms of tests and ODIs, no question, but maybe not quite up to that standard in T20 cricket is Ben Stokes. Michael Vaughan, where do you stand on that?
Well, his numbers aren't the same as what we see obviously in Test cricket. I think first and foremost, Ben Stokes, I love him because he's a modern person, he's a modern player, but I still think he wakes up most mornings wanting to play Test cricket. I think his DNA and his kind of real love of cricket is for the longer format. He's obviously the Test match captain. He's done a remarkable job in his first year. I think after Test match cricket, he likes 50-over cricket. I think he likes the length of 50-over cricket. It allows him to go out there, particularly with the bat, and almost read the situation, soak up the pressure, and then explode into life. T20 cricket, I don't know. I don't know him well enough to say that this is true or not, but I get a feeling that I don't think he loves T20 cricket as much as the other 2 formats. And I think he's a style of player and a style of batter in particular that he just needs. Very similar to David Malan, but David Malan's got better and better this year in terms of going out there and be a bit more aggressive from the get-go. But Ben Stokes likes a few balls to get in. I'll say this. I'm not sure. If England lose today, and obviously Ben's in that side, it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't play too much more T20 cricket for England. It's the end of a World Cup. We go then into lots of Test match cricket, the 50-over World Cup next year. He'll obviously not be a part of that because he retired from 50-over cricket. I'm not too sure whether he'll play a huge amount of T20 cricket for England after this tournament. If England are kicked out early, if he's not playing as well as he can do. You've got David Willey in that England setup that he's a brilliant T20 cricket. That left arm over, can whack it down the back end. One thing for sure is if Ben Stokes plays today, England have to change the batting lineup. You can't have Malan at 3 and Ben Stokes at 4. You've got Livingston down the back end. He's not been utilised enough. Moeen Ali is striking it beautifully. Again, I don't think they've utilised Moeen as well as they possibly can. So I do think if Ben's in the side today, I think you'll see a change in the batting lineup, and potentially he might go down the back end, he might go down the bottom end, and just be used as that swing bowler. He's still bowling okay. He's not that often bowling his quota of 4, but he's particularly in this tournament where they've used him with the new white ball because of the conditions and because it's been swinging. He's a brilliant swing bowler. I've liked that kind of that strategy that England have come up with Ben's bowling in this tournament, but his batting it's just not fired in T20 cricket. And as I said, it would not surprise me at all if England get crushed out of the tournament today, and that's a possibility. They're up against a very good side in New Zealand. I'm not too sure how much we'll see of Ben Stokes playing for England in T20 cricket going forward.
Yeah, given his origins, it's always going to be an interesting battle when Ben Stokes plays New Zealand joy. But I think the one point Michael made there was about your own love for a certain format of the game. Because otherwise, on paper, if you look at it, his game's probably made for the shorter formats as well. But he obviously shows his own preference to the longer format.
Also, sometimes it's counterintuitive. like you look at it, you should say that you look at Sehwag and everyone thinks that Sehwag is the born white ball cricketer. I mean, he's the guy who should be smashing it. I mean, he's hit double centuries in, one-day international matches. He's hit centuries in T20s. But he's actually a terrific test cricketer. It's very counterintuitive. The way he whacks the ball, you think, it's not. I feel Ben Stokes is a lot like that. You see him, you see his explosiveness and you wonder, this guy is built to play T20 cricket. But the fact of it is, so much of it also depends on his wanting to be. And the second is exactly what Michael said. He likes to play the situation. And very, very rarely in T20 cricket do you have the luxury of playing a situation. You need to go there because there's so little time out there to assess pitch, address conditions. And I think what he's saying, 3-4 years back, they played Joe Root as that one guy who'd sort of be there in the middle, who's sort of supposed to give sense and sensibility to the batting order, where the rest all go berserk around him. I think that's what Ben Stokes can do, but you can't have both David Millar and Ben Stokes doing it, because once you do that, that leaves very little time for Liam Livingstone, Harry Brooks, I'd love to see, Moeen, all these people to get going. And you cannot have that logjam in the middle order. Like over 6-2, England is really suffering over 6-13, 14, when any one of those two is in the crease, or if two of them are in the crease, they can't afford to do it. And I think that's what Michael's alluding to. It's a situation where they can't have both.
Interesting. But wasn't Viru's strike rate in Test cricket at one point better than ODI cricket?
Quite possible. Yeah, it's eminently possible.
I remember we looked at some numbers at one point in time. We were trying to make a point about it. Of course, he's very much part of our show. And I think he keeps track of his own numbers. We'll just ask him at some point in time.
Yeah, he knows all his own numbers.
For now, we'll go away from hashtag Ask Viru to hashtag Ask Cricbuzz Live, because we like to have all your participation. And we know you always ask the pertinent questions, the potent questions, if at all. And let's see what we have on the show today. Looking at a doubleheader, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, and then England, New Zealand. Harikrish Ravichandran says, why can't we have a bowl out or a six hitting to decide points in a rain hit game? Afghanistan could well be out by just playing effectively one game. Joy, I'll come to you first on this one. Takes us back to 2007.
Yeah, exactly.
When people hated the idea of a bowl out. No one knew what it was. India employed the right strategy to get it there. But is there a way to try and get a result out in an unorthodox fashion, given the amount of rain we're having?
Look, I'm always a believer, nowhere. I mean, Test cricket is the only place where you have games which end in draws. I mean, draws rarely are, you have it in football, but in football, where knockout tournaments, you can't afford to have things like that. I would love to have something to sort out rain hit matches, and the bowl out is as good or as bad. In fact, I think the bowl out was first tried in the John Players League a long time back, because you need to do something which involves a certain amount of skill. I'd rather do a bowl out than a toss, for example. I mean, at least there's some skill involved. Is it the same as playing a match? Of course it's not. But at least you have some say in your own fate. Whereas you don't have any say at all when it comes to a rain hit match or splitting points. So I would like teams to have some say in what happens to them. And therefore, for me, anything is better than sharing points, because sharing points is just creating a situation which just goes on. And it does the teams like Afghanistan no good at this point in the tournament.
Yeah, but Michael, Joy mentioned football briefly, where you have draws, but you need to have certain situations where you do need a result if it's not the league. And there comes the penalty shootout. And some might feel that a penalty shootout in a World Cup final is not the right way to decide it, but it has happened. Yeah,
no, we're quite used to losing penalty shootouts, so we might as well lose on a bowl out as well. First and foremost, it'd have helped if the ICC had played the tournament in a country that wasn't in the rainy season, so that would have helped. Potentially, they could have played in Melbourne with a stadium with a roof on. That may have helped. But I'm with Joy. I think seeing points split just on the back of a complete washout. I'm not too sure. It's not ideal. It's certainly not ideal to think that you're going to go into the indoor school and film a bowl out. That's what used to happen here in the UK many times in NatWest Trophy one-day games in the county game, Benson and Hensh's Cup in the county game. You would go in the indoor school and it'd be a bowl out. Many times I've played in bowl outs, and wicket keepers have actually been the best bowlers because you'd have the opening bowler bowling a set of stumps and obviously bowling a complete jaffa where it pitches around middle and off stump and it just seams away and misses the off stump. And then you've got some wicket keeper that runs up with a dodgy action and just kind of throws one down there and it hits the stump. So And with joy, I mean, it's not ideal. It's not obviously what any team would want, but I still think you'd rather have an element of skill involved, and bowling at a set of stumps is skill, even though it's not ideal. I don't like this splitting of the points.
Yeah, fair point. And the moment Michael said about keeper with a dodgy action, I know we didn't have a keeper bowling, but Robin Uthappa, Virender Sehwag, Harbhajan Singh,
Absolutely.
they'd picked their bowlers. Mahendra Singh Dhoni was the target rather than the stumps. Said, look
Correct.
at me, and you'll hit the stumps. And Pakistan went with their proper bowling attack and made a right mess of it on that day.
I think it was Yasser Arafat, Umar Gul, Shahid Afridi. All
Yes.
three missed in that order. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we prepared much. And just the way Robin Uthappa took off his cap after that, doffed his cap to the entire audience after hitting the stumps.
But the important part was it was a plan. It's not that they just said, listen, we're here, we're not sure about this format's about, so who wants to have some fun? They apparently had tried all the bowlers out in this eventuality, and these guys had emerged in terms of hitting the stumps the most times.
Absolutely. I think Venkatesh Prasad was the bowling coach for that tournament. I think it was Prasad also who he and Dhoni basically devised this plan. But yeah, but great, absolutely. Anything which has any amount of skill is better than completely random or completely sharing points. I mean, that's my belief.
Yes, of course. And the reason why we've been referring so much to England and the possible clash against New Zealand, which is likely to be quite a cracker, given that England were pre-tournament favourites. New Zealand are suddenly creeping up, as they always do. More points than anyone at the moment in this tournament. And that's going to be the second game. Of course, we'll be right back to chat about all that. England versus New Zealand. And that's going to be a big game coming up. For now, we're focusing on Afghanistan and Sri Lanka. Quick one, again, a reminder, Afghanistan batting first. What's the kind of score they're looking at putting on the board?
I think a lot of these teams, it's not easy. These are not easy conditions for subcontinental teams to bat. And if it's been overcast all day, expect the ball to do a little. And, whatever it is, even Rajita can, seam it away and he can swing it away a bit. So you're going to see conditions suitable to fast bowling to start with. I think teams like Afghanistan would say, if we can get to 150, they're not going to look at 180. Or if they can get to 140, 150, it's a decent total under these conditions. We have the bowlers to defend 140, 150. And I think that's the big difference between now and Dubai. In Dubai, teams were saying 180 was a kind of target we think we can defend. I think it's about 25, 30 runs less here.
Michael, I think the one thing that's changed over the years, I mean, maybe a few years ago, an Afghanistan-Sri Lanka match, you'd be like, oh, what a wonderful story, Afghanistan. They've come through the ranks. It's just so good that we have them here. And we'd be glorifying the entire story of the rise of Afghanistan cricket. Now, they're basically a cricket team you reckon with, like so many of the other, what we earlier referred to as minnows or associate nations, are now pretty much on a level playing field.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could argue, and you'd make a strong argument saying that Afghanistan have possibly got the best spin attack in the world. So that's how far Afghanistan cricket has come over the years. Wonderful side to watch. With the bat in hand, you always feel they're a little bit light, but it only takes a couple of their players to come off. And I'm with Joy. Get to 140, 150, and I think with that attack, they'll put Sri Lanka under a huge amount of pressure. You only have to look at their first game in the tournament against England, where they only got just beyond 100. And this has been the problem for England with their net run rate, that they didn't go after that target with too much aggression. It took them to the 19th over to chase down that smallest total. And it was because of their spin. It was because of their expertise with the ball in hand. So even 130, 135 would be enough with that attack to put Sri Lanka under a huge amount of pressure. But yeah, they in Sri Lanka are a powerhouse, really, in terms of what they've done over the last 20, 30 years. Remarkable story back in the 90s, but it doesn't surprise me at all anymore when Sri Lanka produced some magic. Afghanistan, there's still an element of that surprise when they play against the big teams. But this game today, who's favourites? You'd say just Sri Lanka, but only just because they're losing obviously a few of their bowlers. And Afghanistan, it's because of the batting. If they had two real quality players in that engine room with that spin department that they have, you'd say that they'd cause a few more shocks. But that spin kind of attack. If you said to many of the other sides around the world, would you like to take Rashid Khan, Mujib, a bit of Nabi? I think they'd all say yes, please.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad lineup to have, but good point Michael makes about just that numbers 4 and 5, who, if the explosiveness of a Zazai, who's not there today, doesn't come off, you can still push them to 130, 140 type totals. But for now, we'll leave the questioning to a Sri Lanka or an Afghanistan or an England or a New Zealand. Hand it over to our in-house questionnaire. Enjoy, what do you have for us today?
It's a simple one. Okay, I think it's simple.
Okay.
This specific record has been achieved by 7 Indians, 5 batters, RP Singh and R. Ashwin. What achievement? 7
Indians, 5 batters. So you basically, from your question, you're suggesting that RP Singh and R. Ashwin are not batters. Maybe RP
Ashwin has got 4 centuries, but 4 test centuries, but But 5 out-and-out batsmen. I mean, they're not bowlers.
All right. I'm glad. I normally would tell everybody in the panel, listen, hang on, it's not meant for you. Michael, I know you were chomping at the bit to get at that one.
Just give me about an hour and a half to work out the question, and then I'll come back to you.
We love Michael on the show whenever we pop up a nice little quiz question. But I do remember it was not too long ago when he was just like, he had his hand up there for a particular one he didn't know the answer for. And we had to really chain him to stop giving the answer before all our folks did. Hashtag Cricbuzz Live, get the answers back to us. And of course, we will talk about you later on the show. But do we still get some predictions going?
Absolutely, we must.
Right, so it's Afghanistan, won the toss, batting first, no Zazai. Possibly we're thinking they're not going to aim too high, but how low is low and how middling is middling? What score are you going for?
I'm going with 144.
144, which probably be the kind of total Sri Lanka wouldn't mind and yet Afghanistan would be happy with. So interesting one. Michael?
I'm going to go 136.
144, 136. I'm a newbie in this as far as this particular tournament is going. So I'll just be reckless. I'll start being reckless and put up a higher total and get 159 on the board. 159 on the board, which if it does happen, I think our panel reckons would be a winning total with the likes of Nabi, Rashid and Mujibur Rahman. So that's what we have as far as the first of 2 games today on Cricbuzz Live. It's Afghanistan v Sri Lanka. It's England versus New Zealand. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Joy. We, of course, will be back in the 10th over with Cricbuzz Combox, and we will be back in the mid-innings to see which of us predicts right, but more importantly, which of the 2 teams will be in a happier position in the dressing room. That's all we have on the show. We'll see you soon.